Hey there, and we are back now in chapter 21, part 3, and we're in verse 17. So let's dig in. With that, he left them and went outside the city to Bethany. This Bethany is known as the house of the poor. Interesting that the people that he was trying to help in the temple, the people who were poor and the spiritual were abusing them, or the religious leaders were doing the spiritual abuse that we were talking about. They were taking advantage of the people. And now he goes into Bethany, which is the house of the poor, and he's entering into that area, and he encounters this. So let's read. The next morning, so he went to Bethany where he spent the night, and we also know that his close friends Lazarus, Mary, and Martha also live there. So we assume that he probably stayed with them. The next morning, on his way back to the city, he felt hungry. Spotting a fig tree by the road, he went up to it, but found nothing on it except leaves. So he said to it, "May you never bear fruit again. May you never again bear fruit." And immediately the fig tree dried up. The disciples saw this and were amazed. "How did the fig tree dry up so quickly?" they asked. Jesus answered them, "Yes, I tell you, if you have trust and don't doubt, you will not only do what was done to this fig tree, but even if you say to this mountain, 'Go and throw yourself into the tree,' it will be done." In other words, you will receive everything you ask for in prayer, no matter what it is, provided you have faith. Now, Mark 11 adds another part here. So let's look at that real quick. Mark 11, the end part in verse 34 or 24. "Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, trust that you are receiving it and it will be yours. And when you stand praying, if you have anything against anyone, forgive him, so that your Father in heaven may also forgive your offenses." So we've talked about this before, that faith is the revelation and persuasion to do God's will. That's the meaning of faith. Yes, in part that's trust. But to understand the trust, you have to have the revelation from God and the persuasion to do his will. And that's exactly what he's talking about here when he's saying he speaks to this fig tree and it doesn't, and it withers up and dies. And he says, if you have faith, then you can do anything. So let's understand too. It says that he spotted a fig tree. Now, in the Mark passage, or I should have kept my finger there, Mark passage, it gives a little bit more detail. It says this: the next day as they came, this is verse 12. The next day as they came back from Bethany, he felt hungry. Spotting in the distance a fig tree and leaf, he went to see if he could find anything on it. When he came up to it, he found nothing but leaves, for it wasn't fig season. He said to him, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." And his disciples heard what he said. So why would he expect there to be fruit on something that wasn't even fig season? So in this time, in this particular season in Israel, the fig tree would produce later on in June, but it would begin to show, how you sometimes see little hints of fruit that's going to be on a tree before it's actually time for it. You see little balls or whatever on the leaves, and this would this would appear in around the time of Passover. Sorry, I'm getting my words all bumbled, but before Passover, you would begin to see that. So Jesus goes up to this fig tree. Though it's not the season for them to be ripe, he is also in the area. As we said, he's in Bethpage. He's coming from Bethany, going through Bethpage. This is the house of unripe figs or early figs. So this fig tree should have signs of fruit on it. It should show a lot of fruit because this was an expected thing in this area. But he doesn't see it. He does not see any fruit on it, and that's why he curses it. Also keep in mind that the fig tree in Israel, or for Israel, God uses a fig tree to represent them when they are not obedient. And he uses an olive tree to describe Israel when it is obedient. So he has cleared out the temple, his temple, saying that this is supposed to be a house of prayer, but you made it into a den of robbers. There is no fruit on this tree, and you are disobedient and rebellious. And that's what the picture is here. So it's not a random thing to place this fig tree in the middle of this passage. He's saying that you have no fruit. And because you have no fruit, you're cursed. And we know that 70 AD, that the temple was burned down. And so he did. He cursed it. Okay, and then so let's continue on. He also talks about if you have trust or faith, don't doubt, you will not only do what was done to this fig tree, but even to say to this mountain. Now, whether or not because they're on the Mount of Olives, whether or not he's talking to Mount of Olives or the Temple Mount, more than likely he's talking about the Temple Mount because of what takes place. But he says, go and throw yourself into the sea. It will be done. And of course, we know that, like I just said, the temple was destroyed in 70 AD. So he's saying, if you have faith, you have the revelation and persuasion to say whatever God gives you to do his will. When he gives a prophetic word and he speaks about something, then you speak it forth and it will be done. But you have to have his revelation and his persuasion in order for you to accomplish God's will and for it to be done on earth. And that's why we pray in Matthew 6 that we've talked about. We pray the Lord's Prayer. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. We want your will to be done, but we need your revelation and your persuasion to bring that into being. And when you do that and you have no doubt of that revelation, persuasion, and you have the faith, then anything can be done. In other words, you will receive everything you ask for in prayer, no matter what it is, provided you have that faith. And that's why you have to have the understanding of what faith means. It's not just trust. It's truly his revelation and his persuasion to accomplish his will and to pray that into being. And of course, we also read in Mark where we talked about, and when you stand praying, this is added, but it's important because it's the crux of Christianity. And when you stand praying, if you have anything against anyone, forgive him, so that your Father in heaven may also forgive your offenses. So Jesus forgives us. And he says that we cannot, we've talked about this in a previous video, but God cannot forgive us if we do not forgive others. And so this is part of our revelation and persuasion to do God's will. And when we have that context and understanding. Now, let's see. I think that covers all for this section. Yes. So we will dive in tomorrow to our next section. And stay tuned as we get into another little bit of an interesting passage that he talks about in regards to authority.